Okay.
Go. Yeah, I'm Inge. It's like singer, Minga without the S and the M. I've been an entrepreneur since I was, well, forever. I've never really had a really real job. Right now, I own a company called Clue Content, which is a content creation company, hence the reason coming on to talk about content. But we're building out technology in the company, which I managed to fundraise for. So this is the first company I've had where I've bought investment in. I've had lots of previous companies in which didn't have investment. It's definitely much easier for a little while when you have investment. But yeah, so I started when I was 17. I used to be homeless actually in Cambridge, and I used to sell cocktails on the street up and down, people queuing up in nightclubs, like really manky Long Island iced teas, selling for £15. um, and that grew into a mobile cocktail bar. The mobile cocktail bar grew into an event planning company. So I used to turn up at events and it would be run awfully. And I'd say, hey, there's an opportunity here. I can do this. That then grew into a wedding planning company. But when I was running the wedding planning company, I used to have lots of quite high paying clients, you know, who would drop 500,000 on their wedding. And so had lots of people who would ask me, you know, oh, how are you doing that? How are you attracting those kind of people? And it was all through social media. So I moved into consultancy and have been doing consultancy for the past probably nearly 6 years. But a year and a half ago, decided I would just stop telling people how to do it and I would do it for people because it's really hard to keep up. You have to find ways to keep up, definitely in the beginning of a business journey. But I find it's really hard to keep up. And so we set up Clue. Well, I set up Clue, which is because people don't have a clue how to do it. And so we create content for companies. And like I said, we're building out some technology, which is a vast analysis of data to make really hyper personalized campaigns. That's me.
That is an incredible story. I always thought it would be fun to be a wedding planner, but also very stressful because it's like the most important day of someone's life. And so
People think it's glamorous. It's really not. It's so hard.
yeah. But when it goes right, it must be so worth it.
Yeah.
With your fundraise, so just for a bit of context, on the call, we tend to have some earlier stage founders who haven't raised before, and then there'll be some people who have raised before. So more so for the earlier stage founders, when it came to fundraising, did you have a bit of a network? What was your original approach? So did you kind of make a list of people that you could reach out to for a friends and family round, or did you not really have a network of angel investors and you had to go out cold? How did you kind of build the original pipeline of investors for that round?
Yeah. So I know I'm going to shoot this all session, but it was content. So no, I didn't have a network of people. I had set up the company already as a content company, but I knew I wanted to scale it, which is where I decided to bring in investment. And I just started talking about it online. So I would create content around it, around my ideas, around what I was doing. And I found that people in my network that I had already started to reach out. So it was most definitely through that. And the investment I ended up with, one is a client, and two were people in my network that I didn't know were interested in this.
Yeah. So did you have any kind of inbound, like you would be were you posting about the business and where you wanted the business to go? And then you had some inbound that came in off the back of that content to kickstart those investor conversations?
Yeah. So the very first person was totally cold. Well, I know him, but I was talking like, you know, I think it'd be cool to do this thing, and and he sent a message saying, oh, have you ever thought about investment? Because I'd love to invest. So that was totally out of the blue. I had been thinking about it privately, but hadn't formally said anything online. And then the second one was, yeah, I'd started to say, listen, I'm going to start looking for this amount. If anyone knows anyone, let me know. And she came out of the woodwork that way. So it was, yeah, it was interesting. And then the third person, he invested a little bit later on, and yeah, same through. I'd already secured, it was 50 grand's worth of investment, and I'd talked about how I'd secured that. I celebrated that in my content, and then he came along a couple months afterwards and said, "Oh, I see you're interested in raising. Can we have a chat?" It's gone from there.
At that point, how many people roughly would you say you had as a following? Because I'm imagining some of the founders here that I've spoken to don't feel like they've even got enough people following them for them to build that momentum when they're talking about what they're doing.
Yeah. I know it's really annoying. Someone sit here and say, oh, I got it through my network. So I supposed to run. I did already because I had already got businesses. I'd say I probably already had about 5,000 people across different platforms. But the two first investment, even though they were interested through the content, they were just in my normal offline network.
Yeah.
So I think it just goes to show, like, even if you don't necessarily have the following, just being verbal about what your plans are, being excited about it, and talking to as many people about it as possible,
Yeah.
will help.
Yeah. So you don't only have to talk about it on social platforms. Like, I guess most people are using LinkedIn for this kind of thing because that's where the professional network is versus their friendship group or kind of friends of friends network, but maybe just be unashamed about talking about what you're doing wherever you are.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put it on an Instagram stories when I was brushing my teeth. I was like, listen, I think I'm going to need to find 500 grand. And someone messaged me and said, I've got 500. Do you want it? I mean, it didn't work out in the end, but it's just that unapologetic chat of, and as long as you can kind of back it up with the decision, the communication, the passion around what you're doing, just unapologetically saying it over and over again.
Do you agree with the kind of building in public thing? I mean, some people are talking about fundraising in public now. So they'll be posting more about how much they've got, how much they've raised today. And they'll say they want to close their round by end of October, let's say. And then they'll post that out kind of to keep themselves accountable. But I also think to raise the profile of what they're doing. Do you kind of agree with that as a method?
I do. I know that it's a very torn decision. I ended up in a discussion with someone on LinkedIn who said categorically founders should not be focusing on building in public. They should be focusing on building out the product. But I think, I mean, it just separately from an investment conversation, I've found that building more in public means that I have more of a ready audience for when the product's ready. And I can almost test the communication and the messaging around what I want to do with that in terms of marketing before I have to spend any money. If I can actively communicate, this is my idea and this is what I'm thinking, when it's still really raw and I haven't really pinned down the value and the messaging and what it actually is in a communicative way, then I have that, to back me up. When I do want to go for proper kind of formal values, mission, messaging with the product. So no, I don't know. I really go for it. I mean, I have a whole TikTok series. Every day I do something, and it's called building my £1 billion company. And every day, day 607 of building my £1 billion company.
Yeah.
Today I use my name.
Just saw your Instagram earlier on today. I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. If not,
And
it's a game. It's a journey, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. I mean, and everyone's on the same, I mean, everyone that's fundraising is essentially on the same journey of they're trying to prove that they've got the traction from the customers in order to get the investment. And you learn some things go well, some things don't go well, and you learn from those and you change or you iterate or you pivot. So one of the other questions, which is very, very broad that I had for you was just any learnings kind of, I guess, across the cocktail selling business up until now that you think are relevant for founders more generally speaking? So the majority of founders here are tech founders, but there's also consumer good businesses. But anything that you've learned along the way that you think is relevant for founders?
You have to figure out how to, in the best possible way, manipulate your customers. So there's a great saying from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Not that I really love the wedding, love the movie, right? But she says the man, he is the head of the house, but the woman, she is the neck, and she can turn the head whichever way she wants. And so, as a founder, as someone that owns a company, you have to understand you're the neck. Like, you have to really figure out, from selling the street cocktails on the street, I was like, listen, the queue's really long. You're going to take hours to get in. Let's have a drink. Figuring out the emotional hook. And then now I'm selling content, it's just saying, listen, you've got no time to do it. You're not doing it well. Let's be honest, it looks shit. Let me help you. So it's all about, and even when I through the raising investment, some of them had property, and I say, listen, yes, you've got money in property, but it's boring. You're not doing it. You're not coming on a journey. Like, come and play with me. So it's, from everything I've learned, is all about, I honestly think you can sell or grow anything in business as long as you really figure out what that emotional hook is. And people won't tell you. When you're having a conversation with a friend, sometimes they won't physically say the words out of their mouth of what they need or what they're feeling. But if you can figure out what it actually is and empathize and communicate, even if it's a tech product, like it does this, but what are you actually trying emotionally to trigger or solve?
Yeah.
Kit Kat, have a break, have a Kit Kat. Like, it's just a chocolate bar, but we all want to have a break.
Yeah.
Nike, just do it. Just do it. So that is what
has your learning, or I guess like how quickly you can figure out what the hook is, has that evolved over the course of like the businesses that you've had?
I think I was really good at it, and then I got really bad at it, because I think when you are starting and you're scrappy, and if you need to convince someone in front of you in a real life human setting, you can, if it's to convince someone to watch a certain cinema show or something, you're actually really good at it. But then I think sometimes in business you can get bogged down with all the things that you should be doing and the ways that you should do it. And so I think over time I lost the ability to just hook into that natural persuasive language. So I think sometimes I have to stop and think, no, instead of all of the fluffy lingo of what I'm doing, what is it that I'm actually trying to convince someone of? And so I don't think it's about getting better or getting better over time. I think it's about just remembering that at the end of the day, you're just a person with a thing, and you're trying to get someone to do that thing. So how would you do that?
Yeah. Do you think it's something that can be learned for founders that are thinking, oh, I don't have that natural ability to, I don't know, be able to communicate or empathize? Like, do you think it's a skill that you can like flex the muscle?
Yes, through lots of putting yourself in awkward situations. Like, if you guys have pitching events, stuff like that, you definitely, because the more you do bad pitching events, the more you'll learn how to do good pitching events.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just kind of doing the reps and just speaking to as many people as possible and trying them on different messages, different hooks, seeing how they respond to it. Can you do that? I mean, I guess in a conversation you've got verbal cues, or they'll be responding in a certain way, but can you also do that online? I mean, I'm assuming seeing what the engagement or the reaction is like to a particular post then helps you identify whether you've got the right message or not.
Yeah, definitely. Or even if it's not on social, just through email marketing. So, pardon me, what you can say that will garner a reply. How are you communicating that way? This is why I really advocate for building in public, because I think it gives you that platform of experimentation while you're still trying to figure out what it is that's going to convince someone to do this thing with you. I'm up for it.
Yeah. With I've got so many questions. I've got so many questions just for us at Hotbed, but like trying to also come up with questions that are going to be useful for everyone else, because we do a lot of newsletters. I know I didn't put this in the original email, but I'm just interested. And figuring out like the subject line, optimizing the subject line for someone reading it versus the actual email body for engagement versus the time of day that you're sending the email and which day. Like, there's so much that you have to be conscious of. I'm assuming this is why you built Clue Content, because there's a lot of that don't know, like once you've got the time and the day, and then making sure that you optimize the subject line, and then making sure that the actual content is exactly the right length, and does it have visuals, and does it have emojis, just like, well, there's like almost too much to focus on. Any tips, I guess, for founders that are in the same boat?
My tip, honestly, is not to get bogged down in that stuff, because if you can say the right thing, it doesn't matter when you say it, how you say it, how many words you say it in, you've said the right thing. So I wouldn't, sometimes the difference in a sending time of the day for a huge company like, I don't know, Nike, can be the difference between 2% of click-throughs, which can be the difference in millions of pounds of sales. But for when you're like us, like starting up and we've just got a raw audience, that difference in time of 1% doesn't actually make much difference to our bottom line. It's more about figuring out the macro of, is this the right thing? So yeah, it's often I find people tend to build a business around a problem that they have themselves. And so sometimes having a little bit of a pull yourself out of that email, read the subject heading and think, would I respond to this subject heading? If so, then it's probably good. Or have I gone too far in the should have, would have, could haves of email subject headings? And it now just sounds like something ChatGPT wrote. So
Yeah.
just kind of get perspective, I think.
Speaking of ChatGPT, because this is one of the things that I was wondering about. Everybody's using GPT to write content, and that's one of the things that people that are talking about AI and what it's good for right now, especially with the hallucinations, is doing marketing, because it can come up with something creative. But what's your general thoughts on using AI to create content right now with how good it is today? And then do you have any thoughts on the future possibility?
I don't think, I think so we're developing our AI technology. So I'm obviously very biased towards using it, not to create the creative though. So I think AI is phenomenal for analysis and delivering, well, we use it for delivering suggestions, but actually when it comes down to the actual creation of the newsletter, the asset, the thing, still think that should be very human based. I think there's going to be a problem in the future, and there's more tech people on here than I'm probably techie, but my thought is anyway, with the creative assets, they're coded up as generated by AI, and the words are also, you know, that you could put them in a searcher and know that they were generated by AI. You know, universities have them, so you might find a point in the future in which people turn around and say, like the platform, we don't want social media, we don't want AI content on our platforms. You know, you already have the little toggle of, is this AI generated? So they won't, you know, they'll downgrade it in the algorithms, or they'll just remove it completely, because human to human actual creation of content, I think, is important. But I think AI has a massive point of potential for creating space for humans to do what they're really good at. And often that's not the analysis of, sometimes people are really good at it, but there's bias in it sometimes, you know, not the analysis of hundreds of thousands of pounds of thousands of documents of data in which a person would take hours and hours of days and days and weeks and months. So I'm more into the AI for the analysis capabilities it has, not necessarily the generative capabilities.
Because even when I ask ChatGPT to write something, it always sounds exactly the same. And it's pretty easy to spot still when someone else has written something that's written by AI.
Yeah, I mean, you can get very good at training a GPT. So if you want to use it, then I would copy all of the copy that you've had before. Like if you've got PR bios, or if you've got copy on your website, if you've written things before yourself, literally just copy and paste it. You can copy and paste 18 pages, I think, worth of stuff, paste it into ChatGPT and say, learn from this. And then after that, you just keep saying, relearn from the chat we've had and write this for me. And it will keep doing it in the tone until it gets a bit exhausted. So there is definitely, listen, we're all small companies scaling. We've not got loads of time. If you need to use it, you need to use it, but train it properly.
Yes, yeah, that's a good tip. I know there's some questions coming in on the chat. We're going to go through some other tips for people that are looking to generate their own content, and then we will move on to audience Q&A. So there will be an opportunity to ask Inge a question live. You just raise your hand using the raise hand emoji, which is the react button at the bottom. And there's an arrow next to it where you can click to raise your hand, or pop it in the chat and we'll ask on your behalf. Whilst you're talking about kind of training GPT, any other top tips for founders that are looking to improve their content strategy? I think it's especially on LinkedIn, but also any tips that you have that are not LinkedIn specific?
So I personally think you should dedicate time to it. I think we can get caught up in doing the do's of our products, especially when we're building and scaling. But just 20 minutes a day, even if you can't come up with anything yourself to create in terms of content, just responding, like, it's the normal kind of LinkedIn guru spiel of respond to comments, respond to any, but it does work. So definitely doing that and trying to expand your network. Particularly, I personally work quite hard in my LinkedIn in a way that, for example, in this kind of space, if I had come on to, well, I was just on the Women in Innovate thing that I know is blowing up a little bit now, but in each of the training sessions, there'd be a good 100 people on there that I knew I would want to connect with. So I spent, instead of watching it, I would spend the hour finding everyone on LinkedIn and connecting with them. I just saw you on the chat. Like, I hope this doesn't, hope you don't mind. But equally on this, there's a good 27 people on here. You could find everyone on LinkedIn, say, oh, I was on that hotbed chat. Hope you don't mind me reaching out and connecting, just to build it, because the network on LinkedIn is what's most important. Separately, if you are really interested in creating content and taking it as a very serious way of driving marketing for your company, it can be very, very expensive. And so to start off with, I would look at offshoring. I know that it's not a very popular topic sometimes, but we're a UK-based company, but all of our content is created offshore, in the Philippines, in Pakistan, in Netherlands, in South Africa, and it's phenomenal content. But it just means that it's a little bit cheaper for me. We make sure we pay a fair wage for the area, of course, but it means that I can keep up with the pace that's necessary whilst still building out a team that doesn't have to cost me a UK wage.
Is there any kind of absolute don'ts that people should think about when creating content?
Don't post something that's shit. Like poor quality stuff. So if you post something that's poor quality, i.e. like a grainy video or grainy photo or something you've just thrown up there, if you continue to post poor content, 67% of your, it's proven that 67% of people that engage with your company will assume poor delivery of service. So by posting something that's poor or not well thought through, you actually can be inadvertently affecting your sales pipeline down the line. And to come back from that is much harder than only posting one really amazing thing a month. I'd rather someone do that than try and keep up by posting crap, because posting crap can really damage your brand without you thinking about it. And wipe your camera lens. Everyone takes a photo or a video on their phone, and that's fine, but they never wipe the lens, and it's so obvious that it's not clean.
I was talking to someone else the other day as well about how a lot of stuff that you see on LinkedIn at the moment is the same. Like everyone's kind of posting around. I mean, this is all within the realm of kind of tech startups, but everyone's posting the same topics and the same advice in a very similar format, like two lines and then a gap, and then 2 lines and then a gap, not full paragraphs. And there's always a picture attached. Normally it's a selfie or it's a photo of the person in some situation that's not necessarily related to the post that they're doing. And this person said that if you try and go too far away from what people expect, it could actually be detrimental. Because I think there's some people that are trying to be different and some people that are trying to follow that trend because they see it working. So do you have any advice on that? Like, do you follow the trend? Can you go completely different? Somewhere in the middle?
I would do something in the middle. I mean, there's technical good practice. So by doing a line and a line and a gap and a picture, you're taking up what's called real estate on a screen. So if you think about a screen, if your post takes up that much of the real estate, you're going to have more, it's going to be more likely paid attention to. Whereas if it's just, a little bit. So taking up as much real estate on social media is a good thing, because it will increase your engagement rate, it will increase people slowing down and reading it. They might not interact with it, but at least you've picked up some interaction through views, which might not be monitored on LinkedIn, but it's monitored on every social platform. But I wouldn't go recreating or, posting about the same things. I think it's really good when people have a difference of thought or a difference of approach or a different kind of thing that they want to do. So technically, yes, do some of the bits that people tell you to do, but don't follow the trends in terms of what everyone says or what everyone does or what everyone posts about. I think the beauty is in the uniqueness of what you can bring to the table. And just think about it like I always have to sometimes take back to it's like a real life situation. If you were sat around a table with these people, would you say that, or would you say the same thing, or how would you be responding? And just because it feels online doesn't mean you shouldn't be the same as if you would be if that was a room full of real people.
Yeah. And just from a time-saving perspective, what's your opinion on someone posting exactly the same thing across every single platform and putting it like like a tool where you can just schedule it to go out across everything at the same time, but it's exactly the same?
Listen, if you've got a team of like 10 people in your marketing department, you should expect them to do that because it's best practice. There are different opinions and messages on different platforms. But if it's just you, go for it. All it will do is tell you'll have a presence, but it will also tell you where different things can be picked up in different ways. So you can end up having different conversations, different places. As a bench line for a normal kind of repurposing strategy of content, we charge from £3,000 upwards a month. If someone wants independent pieces of content per platform, we charge from 10 grand up a month because it's such a big undertaking. And just have a presence and repurpose. If you need to repurpose. I would get more focused in on making sure that you've got the message going out in as many places as possible. Yeah. Rather than, like I've mentioned before, like the nuances and the details, which you can do once you've got the team to do it.
Yeah. I also heard, I don't know if you've heard this or you know anything about it, that posting TikTok videos on LinkedIn is getting prioritized by the LinkedIn algorithm or something. So
so it's never about the algorithms prioritizing stuff. It's all about human interaction. So humans interact much better with video. Like, it moves, we're apes, we like looking at it. So it's never an algorithm thing, it's a human thing. So humans just interact better with video. TikTok are doing it really, really well. So if you pull your TikTok video off, even if it's your Instagram video, it will work better on LinkedIn rather than just a picture and text, as much as people prefer creating a picture and text because it's easier. Go for it. Put everything everywhere.
Yeah. I think people are just it's so like stuck in their head that LinkedIn is a professional audience and maybe TikTok is a more creative audience and Instagram is your friends. I don't know. People like bucket different social media with different audiences and then try and create something specifically for that audience. And then it's just so difficult to keep it up that then
definitely. If you've got the money, cool. Yeah. But if not, just be a person with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other tips that you have for either kind of content creation or content distribution?
Plan it in advance. A lot of people post as they go. You can save a lot of time, and this isn't new information for anyone, I'm sure, but just planning it in advance, looking at, right, what am I doing in these next 3 months? What are the key things I could say in these next 3 months? And then break it down. Just think, okay, I'm going to make 3 posts a week for 3 months. That's going to be 3 times 4, which is 12. 12 things I'm going to make for this, and then do it, post it, and just let it do its thing. So definitely planning in advance and realizing that you don't have to make as many as you think you might have to make. Distribution wise, I would, like I said, like, my personal advice is always not to get bogged down in the details of the distribution, because that's more, in my experience anyway, reserved for some of the bigger companies where the 1% makes a big difference to their bottom line. I would just have like I've kind of touched on, have a human approach. Think, listen, people are going to be on LinkedIn probably now because it's that weird time before lunch. Everyone's going to be scrolling, so post something now and it will probably do better than posting something at 2 a.m, because we all know that. So I wouldn't get too caught up in it, but I would definitely plan things in advance.
Is there a difference in terms of engagement of having a LinkedIn post that has like a direct call to action, like sign up for our product, versus an opinion piece versus just a kind of humble brag style post? Like, should you be doing a mix of all of them?
So there's three different things that you want out of social. The first is reach. So it's sometimes in your company, you're just going to want lots of people to know you exist and not necessarily do anything. Probably you want reach normally 4 months outside of a launch. The next thing you want is engagement and connections and followers. You want that normally a month outside of a launch. And then the last thing that you want on socials is click-throughs. These three different things, you create three different types of content for it. So if you're doing different things all the time, it's not going to work. If you want more reach, you have to create entertaining content. So it's shareable content. People are entertained. It doesn't have to mean you dancing around like a TikTok. Just means it's something that's engaging. It could be the humble brag, like that's more entertaining for people. You know, people will share it. Something, a cool picture of you celebrating something is entertaining. So do that sort of 4-ish months outside of a launch, or when you want just general understanding of your brand. If you want engagement and follows, you want more people to be specifically interested in what you do, but not necessarily looking for those click-throughs, you create educational content. So it's always proving that you are, or your company is, the expert in what you do, that you have a valid opinion, that you can you have a point of view that people should be interested in. So always engaging content, and educational content. And the last thing you want are click-throughs, because as much as every marketer says nothing to do with social is to do with sales, it really is when you have a smaller company. And so at some times of the year, you want those click-throughs to happen, generally around launch. And that's always emotional content, which is categorized by empathizing or energizing content. You either need to lift, and this is where you have to understand what your kind of product does and your audience are interested in. You lift people up with energizing stuff. Wouldn't it be amazing? This is carrot and stick messaging. You know, wouldn't it be amazing if imagine if we can do this amazing thing together. You know, when I was selling cocktails, I was like, my God, like, you know, you're gonna have such a great time. Let's have a cocktail. Let's have a la da da da. Or you create empathetic content. So you have to empathize with the problem, empathize with the person, empathize with the point of view. You know, I remember when, da da da, I know it's annoying when, da da da. And, you know, selling cocktails, this would be, listen, it's a long queue. I know you've been stood here for ages. So think about what point of your, which is why you need to plan in advance. And generally, social takes about 3 months to work. So reach, engagement and follows, and click-throughs, and it goes entertaining, educational, and empathizing or energizing. Different, when it goes to repurposing, the different platforms are amazing for getting different reactions out of people, and you do different things in different ways. But generally, if you can stick with knowing, like, right, I want to go for I want to get loads and loads of connections, I'm going to educate. Or actually, no, I'm in a time period where I want those sales, or I want interest in this particular event I'm holding. I want click through. So it's going to be emotional. So if you can, just on a baseline, not do everything at once, then, and plan it, it would be much better. This is where you have like influencers who are amazing at getting loads and loads of reach and shit at selling a t-shirt, because they're fantastic at creating and entertaining, you know, changing a room around style content, and then they never empathize or energize their audience, so they never sell anything. So if you can box mark off those, depending on what time of the year or what you're doing in your company, you'll perform much better instead of trying to do it all at once.
Yeah. Final question from me. And if anybody does have any questions that you want to ask live, feel free to raise your hand. There are some that I'll go through in the chat as well. Outside of yourself, and hopefully you've got at least 27 connection requests, if not, you're connected with the people already. Is there anyone that you've seen that you're like, wow, they're doing this really well, for any founders that want a bit of inspiration?
Yes. So particularly, well, again, it's different on different platforms, right? But particularly on LinkedIn, I like following, there's a guy called Richard Cook, who is the marketing social media lead at Monzo. He's very good. There's always Pretty Little Marketer. but this is because this is what I'm interested in. So Pretty Little Marketer and Grace Andrews, I like following them. I think though Simmer, do you know Simmer, the food delivery? They're like HelloFresh, but they're already made meals. They're very good. SIMMER, they're doing really well. And Myo Master. So the people that own Myo Master, Lottie and I can't remember his name. He's a pro rugby player. They are very good at not necessarily creating videos and photo content, but really having a point of view and an opinion. Lottie is on LinkedIn every day. You can see her every day commenting on stuff, commenting on stuff, commenting on stuff. It's very, very good. Separately, I love following Bricks and Disorder for entertaining content. They're redoing a house and they're really good.
For the founders that are here, if there's anyone that you recommend that you followed and you think is inspirational or does interesting, engaging, exciting content, feel free to post it in the chat for others to follow. And feel free to post your own LinkedIn profile, which I think Adam has done and nobody else has shared. Because one thing I've noticed is that founders are quite good at supporting other founders. Like if I see a founder, or especially if I've spoken to them and they're saying that they're just starting to try and get a bit of traction on LinkedIn, I'll always like every single thing that I see because I want them to be successful. And I think founders generally want other founders to be successful. So having a network of other founders, even if they're not your target customer or they might not invest, they can kind of help with engagement.
Yeah.
So there's a question in the chat, a very good question from James. Is there still an issue of people buying likes and followers? And does this do anything for algorithms, or how are platforms responding to that?
Yes, there's always an issue. There's definitely an issue with it because the problem is that social media is tied up in our ego. And when you feel shit because you've been working really hard in your company and you post this amazing thing that you spent a lot of time over and you only get 3 likes, it can feel really disheartening. So I can really see the pull in likes and followers and also like engagement pods. It of course does stuff to the algorithm. Like, yes, you might get a visible increase in what you're doing, but what it stops you from being able to do is, like I said at the beginning, figuring out what actually works, what actual thing that you've said is making a difference to the people that are going to buy it, because you often find the likes and follows or people in engagement pods aren't actually customers. So instead of using your socials as a testing ground for messaging and communication, it becomes an ego show. So really don't do it. They do also, yes, the platforms like do really try and crack down on it, and you can get shadow banned, you can get deleted if you're found to do that kind of thing. But ultimately, if you're feeling awful about your account enough to have bought likes and followers, really think about why you're doing it in the first place, because really your social media should be a communication for potential people that are going to buy your thing. Yeah, don't do it.
And the engagement pods, just for anyone that doesn't kind of recognize that terminology, can you just explain a bit about what you mean?
So for example, if everybody in this group was in a WhatsApp group together and you post something on LinkedIn and you say to the WhatsApp group, oh, I've just posted this on LinkedIn, can you go and like it? And so everyone is very supportive and goes and likes it. But then what happens is your content will end up being, engaged with, but not necessarily, again, you wouldn't have tested whether that actually worked, but also it gets engaged with by a particular subset of people. And then the algorithms will push your content into that way rather than in the way of where it should actually sit. So yeah, don't do that either. It can feel really supportive, but it's not good for your brand long term.
That's interesting because I know a lot of founder communities that have these engagement pods, and I totally get it. Like when you see there are some people that you see post, and no matter what they post, they always get over 100 likes or something. And then you're like, how do they do that so regularly? And I guess it changes your opinion of them. You think they're successful because they've got engagement and likes. So then you think that if you don't have the engagement and likes, that means that you're projecting that you're not successful. So then you have to kind of get the traction. Otherwise you end up thinking that other people are going to think you're not successful. So, but
it's hard. I mean, building a business is hard. All we want to do is be successful in what we do. And then you log on and you realize I'm not successful as a person getting 100 likes. I can definitely see why I mean, I've tempted to, but no, never.
There's also there's been a bit more attention. I just thought I'd raise it, and I don't know if you have a particular opinion about it, but just whilst we're talking about it, about people, like I mentioned before, fundraising in public. And the there have been people saying that they shouldn't be doing it because actually you're doing a financial promotion or something. So if you're saying you should invest in my business, I'm raising £100,000, whatever it might be, I've got 60% commitment. That's not regulated by the FCA. And so you could be, without knowing it, in breach of an FCA regulation, which could potentially be damaging for you. I don't think anything's ever actually happened with a founder that's done it, but just something to be aware of. I think the advice is, if you're talking about your fundraise, you can talk about what you're building and who, like, what the problem you're solving and how you're solving that problem and who your market is. But then you can't do the like promotion bit. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Honestly, I'm not qualified enough to answer that question in terms of financial regulation, but the way that I built in public was more just chatting about it, not necessarily. I mean, like I said, did that one Instagram story where it's like 500 grand would be good, but
Yeah.
no, I don't know. That if it's grey, I would stick away. There's other ways of doing things, isn't there?
There's other ways of talking about what you're doing that aren't you promoting that somebody should invest in you. So just tread the line carefully, is what we've heard. And I don't think anyone's kind of done anything, taken anyone down and nothing's happened, but there seems to be more and more people that are doing it. So I think there's more and more attraction for other founders to do it, especially if they see that other posts are getting a lot of momentum or getting a lot of traction or that kind of thing. There's a few other things on the chat, but I don't think there's any specific questions. I mean, someone's talking about if you're relying on IP, you shouldn't speak publicly about it until you file trademarks. Just be careful about what you're sharing, I guess.
Oh, most definitely, I agree. I'll talk about the technology, but not what it is and does. Talk around it and talk around the problem that it solves, but not how it does it.
Yeah.
You know, no, I agree with that one, definitely.
Yeah. Tom, do you have a question?
Hello. Yeah. Hey, Inge. I had a question about what's your take on whether you should create content in the founder's name or like as a founder or on the company profile?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that means more work, but most definitely, I think you should build your personal brand and the company brand. The personal brand will always do much better than a company brand. But what you can, if you build the founder brand inside of the company, what can happen is that people who interact with the company only want to interact with the founder. So if you're building out a team, it's like going to the hairdresser. Everyone wants the salon owner, but actually the other hairdressers are amazing. So build out, if you put too much personal founder in the company, you can then end up with a company that you have to serve very hard. And then later on down the line, if you want to sell, you have to find a way of peeling yourself and your brand out of that company, which can be really hard. So I would do both, but understand that the personal brand will always grow everything because people are interested in people, but use it to filter it back and down and just be okay with the company brand never performing as well as the personal brand. Also, separately, if your company absolutely fails or you want to ever leave it, you've still left with and even if you get investment to grow this, you're still left with your own personal brand, which is an audience size, can be very valuable for when you want to do another idea. So yes, more work, but separate.
Yeah, okay. And would you create very different types of content in each?
Yeah, I would brand them up totally differently. So we have Clue brand, and then I have a Inge Hunter brand. Yes, very separate. I cross and repost each, but no, very separate.
Is there a difference between the two, just out of interest? Like what the company, like the style versus the Inge style?
Oh, most definitely. Clue has its own brand, and then I've worked with a branding person separately to create the Inge Hunter brand as well. So Inge Hunter's got like oranges and creams in it, Clue's pink, blue, black and white. Yeah, because I know that I want to sell Clue, but I know that I don't necessarily want to be beholden to working in Clue for 5 years after I've sold it. So let's separate them from the beginning.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I actually had exactly the same question, Tom, because we were posting a lot as Hotbed, but not as individual founders. And then we went back to posting as founders and then trying to like reshare it as Hotbed and trying to figure out the balance of, yeah, like getting the company a brand versus having the following ourselves. I'm sorry if I get your name wrong because I think it's your first name and surname together. Is it Kanturk?
It's pronounced John, but thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much for this. You have incredible energy. My question for you is, how much content is too much content, or does that exist, do you think? So in my personal case, I have a wine company and we focus on niche wines. We post like once or twice a week. I always thought posting more than that would hurt the brand because we kind of rely on scarcity. Do you think that exists, too much content?
No, I don't think too much content exists. I think unfortunately the more is, as long as the content is high quality, the more you have, the quicker it can help you grow. And we found that with all of our kind of clients. So as standard, when we create content for people, we create 5 pieces a week. And for some of our clients that want hyper growth, we'll create up to 20 pieces a week. And they always statistically grow much, much quicker, but only if it's high quality and only if you can put the resources towards it. If you really can't, then most definitely I wouldn't, posting 2 times a week is totally fine, because it's the quality of it is much more important than the quantity. But yeah, twice a week sounds really good if they're really, really good posts. If you can do more, I'd do more.
Thank you.
It doesn't mean I would experiment. If you can do more, I'd experiment with different types. So it doesn't always have to be a video. It could be a carousel. It could be just a written post. It could be a TikTok, and then it could be something different.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know that sounds like more work.
I'm not doing that, so it's all good.
Oh, fair, okay. Get them to do more.
If you're posting multiple times a day, again, thinking more about LinkedIn, but if there's 3 things that you want to communicate, I don't know, and it all happens on the same day, is there a strategy for how you should prioritize what you're posting? Or like, does LinkedIn just pick up, like of the 3, would it have equal visibility with your audience across all 3 of your posts? Or does it depend on how much engagement you get within the first, I don't know, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, something like that, about what will get prioritized?
Yeah, number 2. So depending on the engagement of it is how it will be prioritized. If you have multiple things that you need to say, I would, I'm going to sneeze in a moment, so I'm sorry. I would try and plan it out in advance. If there's, it is hard when there's multiple things, but I would also try and think, how can I do this in 3 different types? So one of them could be a swipey PDF. One of them could be a video. One of them could be a written thought piece or an article. So yeah, if it's about, like, I know you guys do events though, so if it's like 3 events in one and you want to talk about them all in one day, then I would just go for it, because I think the events are a part of your brand, they're a part of your communication anyway. Whereas if it's 3 separate key core, communicative pieces, you'd really have to think about it differently. But yeah, it would be the one with the most interaction that gets the most visibility.
Because in our case, and I don't know if other people are like this, we have people that ask us to post stuff on their behalf. So can you promote our event that we're doing? And then we want to promote our own stuff as well. And obviously for us, we want more engagement on what we're doing ideally than like us promoting someone else's thing that they're doing.
So you could then get a bit more statistical on the times of day and the days that work best for you, and post your stuff on those days and reserve their stuff for maybe a Sunday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're feeling mean.
Jackie, we've got 3 minutes left, so we'll take your question, then we'll probably be out of time. But I'll ask you at the end just to a little bit more information on Chloe for anyone that's interested. But Jackie, do you want to take it away?
Well, hi, Purdy. Hi, Inge. Great session. I have a million questions. I'll keep them really short. I'm just wondering about repurposing content. So if you do have some high quality content, like we would have a promotional video that's about the brand, is it okay to post that? Like, should we be posting that a few times a day because only a small percentage of people will see it each time? I'm talking about Instagram specifically. We have a B2C brand, Inge. So is that okay to do or not is the first question.
I wouldn't, if it's one piece of promotional content.
Yeah, we sort of have a brand identity like promo video that basically explains what we are. So we were just wondering, should we be using that more often than other bits, like more,
Yes,
daily?
definitely.
Yeah.
At least, so at least once every 2 months, everyone should be re-releasing their founder key promo hero video. And I would just be putting it out again, all platforms, just go for it everywhere, stories, TikTok, Facebook stories as well. And I would just schedule it in, because if it's a really good performing piece of content and it's about your company and it's reminding people about it, just recycle it. I wouldn't do it multiple times of the same day, but I would recycle it at least once every 2 months. But I would be pinning it to all of my channels as well.
Great. And another quick question, if you have an underperforming Instagram account, like I have a yoga brand as well and stuff like that, is it better to start again? Because I didn't really invest any time in it at the beginning. I just created it and left it. And I think it's sort of the algorithm just dismisses it now. And I've seen that sometimes it's better to just start with a new account rather than trying to resurrect one that's dead. Is that true?
Sometimes I would be tempted to analyze it. So this is where I would use ChatGPT. I would go and pull the insights off. I think you can download it on Instagram, download the report and see, and download like screenshots of your account and stuff, put them all into ChatGPT and tell me. So you can tell me what in this performed well and what didn't. And it should be able to analyze it and tell you what worked and what didn't. And then you could make the more informed decision then, I think, about whether or not to get rid of, the 200 people that might be following you. So again, I think it's best to work with what you've got rather than totally scrapping it and starting it again, because I think there's things to be learned. But I would
that's great.
lean into ChatGPT for that.
Brilliant advice. I was going to ask you about Twitter as well, or X, if that's gone dead, or you think there's still a place for it, but that's probably another.
I think it's dead. That would be easy.
Okay.
I don't like it
Cool.
at all.
Yeah, same.
Another quick question in the chat, which I think is a really good one, which is, what's your opinion on content that you pay to boost or kind of becomes a sponsored post? I guess that's across platforms as well.
I think it depends on the platform. TikTok ones are really, really good to do. And that's simply because when you pay to boost or sponsor something on TikTok, any views, likes, follows you get from that remain yours. So they get added up in your account and they're yours. Whereas if you do it on another platform, it stays on that piece of promotional content. And like, for example, if you got, anyway, it stays on that piece of promotional content and it doesn't become yours in your account. So the only place that I really love boosting stuff is on TikTok. Outside of that, if you're interested and you have the budget for paid content and paid social, you need to be doing your organic first, find what works, put some money behind what works, and then what's called A/B testing, where you retest, get it better and better and better. So just throwing money behind something just because, I would only do that on TikTok.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know we're a minute over, but just for anyone that wants to find out more about Clue content or is interested in using you from the conversation that we've had today, what's the best way for them to find you and follow up?
It's all Clue content. So everywhere, Clue content. Not .com, because we didn't get that, but Clue content. Oh no, cluecontent.com. Yeah. And then all me. So like I said, I have my other brand, my personal brand, which is Inge Hunter, Inge.Hunter, everywhere really. But yeah.
So when
great.
we follow up on Luma, we'll send across all your profiles to everybody that's here. We'll also send the recording round of this conversation for all founders that are interested in watching it back. Inge, thank you so much. That was really, really, really useful for us, and I'm sure everybody else in the room and more people that are going to see it in the future. So really appreciate you joining us. We will say goodbye and let you get on with your day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Inge.
Thank you.